Good morning, good evening, everyone. Today is August 9th, 2023, and this is the weekly JupyterLab call. I'm Jason Weil hosting this week. We have 17 people on the call as of this moment. Thank you all. If you haven't already, please sign in on the agenda. And we've got a few folks on the agenda so far. Let's start with Isabella. Go ahead.
Yeah, great. I'm going to kick off the JupyterLab call with things that are not strictly JupyterLab, so forgive me for that. I don't have a better place to go for them, though. The first thing I wanted to ask is, I have someone who wants to submit a post to the Jupyter blog. I know I've asked this to this group before, and it was kind of just like, reach out to people who have, names on there who probably have rights to the blog. But I know we've done some various restructuring governance things since then. I wasn't sure if things had changed or I just need to start emailing people. So I kind of wanted to ask again, if anyone knows.
So I can say so I submitted a blog post recently for Jupyter AI. I submitted it into the queue, and because I have access to do that via Medium. I'm not sure whether you do, Isabella.
I do, but it's not my blog post.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whoever submits it needs to gain access to it. And I am not sure if we have an easy on-ramp to get added to that. So that's a good thing. There was also a kind of a snafu with the JupyterLab 4.0 one where I submitted it with myself as the byline. If we had to do it again, I would not do that, and I would have it submitted with Project Jupyter as the author. And it looks like Medium doesn't really have an option to replace the byline of a post, which is unfortunate. So I don't know that we have like a written process for all this. And also I had to follow up a couple times, including on this meeting, to move it forward in the queue because I didn't get any kind of response.
And that was what happened last time, so that's good to know. But Darian has hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, this is an embarrassment. So we are in the process of creating a working group so that there is someone responsible for you to get in touch with. The two people who are going to bootstrap that working group are Anna and Steve in the EC. So I could suggest, no, we Jupyter, but Anna and Steve are not me, so not that we, but yes. Anyway, I would suggest emailing Anna and Steve and CCing this email address, the Jupyter Executive Council email address, because even though the Jupyter Executive Council doesn't want to be responsible for the content of each publication that we make, because we don't have a working group, that's who is the last port of call. And Tony asked, is this part of the community group? So there are two groups. One is the community building group, which does exist currently, but doesn't do online things. The other is the media relations working group, which does not yet exist, but is supposed to do things like social media, blog, etc. It is actually not obvious to anyone where the community call belongs. Probably the second one, but unclear. That's a thing that needs to be resolved. And
if it belongs anywhere.
No,
I guess that's a different discussion.
Yes. And no, they're not bootstrapping two groups. There's the community building group already exists. There's a working group. I think they have an email address. Jason Grout is on the call. He's a member of it. So if you do have an email address, could you please share it? But the media relations one, the social stuff, that one does not exist yet. That's the one that's in the process.
These things are just painfully closed relative to the openness of other parts of the project. Anyway, that's probably a point for another time, but this sucks to keep talking about, like, the community calls, which are critical to the community, and also being able to have other people make content. Like, these things should really be some higher priority. So let me know what executive council meeting I need to go to. because this stinks.
I have gone to the EC office hours to have these conversations, and I think the next one is this Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific.
Cool.
Let me just say, it's not that I disagree with you. It's that when there are multiple fires, every fire looks high priority.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. But we've had like a low burning brush fire in the community for like 3 years now. So, you know, it's just like in open source software, the code always comes first, but we talk about prioritizing the community. So, you know, I appreciate what's going on. I understand the complexity of doing this. I do feel that based on the success of Jupyter and it's open, being successful as an open project, we can open up some of these things a little bit more and do more as a community with the stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
As with so many other pursuits, Tony, the most effective way I've found to get progress on this, however slowly, is to keep drawing attention to it.
Yeah, it just wears on you over the years, you know.
It does.
It's you know, the advocacy for this stuff it's difficult
Yes.
because Jupyter has so many users. It has such a high surface area that our community is so large, and the folks at the surface of the community have been very under-resourced, and then we still have to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah, we have very few people. I don't think we have anybody whose explicit title is, for lack of a better term, public relations for Jupyter. We have people who do this as a secondary or tertiary function of their job or volunteer responsibilities, but the lack of people with that as a primary responsibility is definitely, you know, unsatisfying, to echo Darian's point in the chat. So go ahead, Isabel.
I did want to say thanks for giving me action to take, Darian. I really wanted to check in case I had missed something. I thought this might be the case, just so you know, it's not totally outside of my expectations. But just people ask me sometimes because they see my name on, like, that I have posted on there. So that's basically what happened. I will get that started. I don't want to totally cut off your conversation though.
Well, one thing though, Isabella, if you're an editor of the Medium blog, because there are no policies written, because there's no working group, if you read the content of a draft post and you feel like it belongs on the Jupyter blog, you can hit publish because it's not against any rule and it's a good faith effort.
But I can't get them in the queue, I think. I know what you're saying, even though bold perhaps to say, but yeah, I don't think I have the power to actually get like, I don't want to repost their stuff with my name. I didn't write it. Right, is kind of my concern. So, and as Jason pointed out, that there's not a, as far as I know, way to do change by line, to do code, anything at all. Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of trying to figure it out. I really don't think there is. I think you're right, because I was looking too.
Very surprising, because I thought that was a P1 feature for any blogging service, but Medium, I guess, hasn't implemented it yet. It's unfortunate. Yeah, and co-authors, as far as I know, are also not available. So what I always do when I have a post is to write an acknowledgement section to tag other folks, to make it, to avoid perceptions that I'm hogging the credit for someone else's work.
Yeah, and so that's fine. It's just in this case, you're right. Like, I could do it if it was my post, but it's not. And I don't think I have high enough power to start adding people into the Medium powers either. But I appreciate the call out.
Okay.
I do have one more thing. Hopefully it will be a little less chaotic, but maybe not actually looking at it again. The other thing I wanted to check, so sometimes I work in corners, well, I say sometimes, often in corners where it's not the kind of high profile Jupyter things, one such case being the Jupyter surveys repo, which I have linked in the notes, which is just supposed to be, for anyone who doesn't know, a collection of user survey, user testing, those kind of things, so that we have kind of a central place to know what has been done and what you can reference. I have done some of that recently, so I've been trying to kind of put them on that repo and point to the results where they live more permanently. But I don't have any way of knowing, like, who's the maintainer, who should review, who should have merge rights, who does have merge rights, kind of, with this case. It's not, I I would not say it's an urgent issue in terms of the PR will wait for things that I have, but I don't really like know how to take action, because as far as I know, Jupyter Surveys is also not part of any sub-project, working group, whatever. And I don't know if there's a process for this, because that's not the only project that I think is like, does not have a explicit home for outreach, and it's just low traffic. I don't think anyone watches it. I think people probably only use it when they like need to look for a resource. So I'm checking the chat, but I wasn't sure if there was a way to like know. I was looking at the contributors, but we changed permissions. You're right, William, sorry to read that out for people watching the recording, saying that the contributor list might be helpful for Jupyter Surveys. I used to do that and it's great, but when we did like the re-permissioning for the organizations, which I think is a good and responsible thing to do, I don't think that that's all the same people anymore. No.
Oh man, I need to authenticate to see this, but yeah, so the repos that aren't part of a sub-project that maybe ought to be, we should just move them to that sub-project, even if we keep the same location. So for example, you can make a case for where surveys belongs. Maybe it belongs in accessibility, maybe it belongs in lab. I mean, unclear. But this particular repo, in addition to inheriting anyone who's an administrator of the GitHub Jupyter org, also has a Jupyter user engagement community and governance team that's on it. I don't know when this
I don't know what any of those are.
Well, it just looks like a subset of the old Jupyter Steering Council. I'm not exactly sure why. In fact, I'm going to remove it now because it seems like an obsolete group. But at least for this particular moment, I'm just going to explicitly add you because you're doing work on it. And for any repo that you have this situation in, what you really need to look at is the GitHub org. So if it's GitHub/Jupyter, then you need to speak probably with either someone in Notebook or someone in the EC, right? Because that's where those two groups stuff is. If it's something in the JupyterLab org, similar thing. So anyway, you now have maintained access on Jupyter/surveys. So hopefully that allows you to do whatever you need.
Yeah. No, can I ask a naive question since you mentioned the organizations? Is the like thing that GitHub groups under quote people in the organizations, people who have rights and not just contributors then? Because I did not know what that meant, and there's a lot of people on this list.
Yeah,
okay.
So the way we have some of our things structured, because it's all been organic and weird, is GitHub allows you to create teams of people and give teams specific permission to repost. So in an ideal scenario, every single member of every single sub-project council would be in a team named after that, and then you would just assign those teams rights to certain things. We don't have that, but as we find discrepancies, we can fix them one by one.
Well, the reason I was asking is because I'm technically a quote unquote people in the Jupyter organization for some of those teams, but that's what I mean is like Jupyter says I'm there, but I didn't have permission to do surveys. So I wasn't sure how to tell who had like survey power versus not. I want to say I might be able to see the teams because I am a people in the org, but I'm not actually sure everyone can, just to clarify for you. There may need to be and I don't know, I don't think I have all the answers, but just because I feel like I keep running into the gaps despite your best efforts, and I am sorry about that. Maybe it's something like there is something we add to READMEs that says this is, the contact point. I don't know. I'm just saying, because people do sometimes ask me too. It's not just me running into it, but I don't know.
I think if we had on a README something that says the administrators of this repo are at Jupyter/Accessibility Council, then that's a whole team of people. right? You could tag them in an issue and like, you know, whatever it is, 11 people get pinged and every one of them will have rights. So maybe it turns out that's what we should do with surveys. Maybe accessibility should say, you know what, we want to own surveys and we're the maintainers of this repo. And then if it turns out somebody else needs access to it that doesn't currently have access to it, that's cool. We can just add them as an individual. So that's one way out of it.
Okay. And thanks for your patience with this. I am sorry. I feel like I'm always coming to you with problems and not necessarily knowing how to solve them, but I appreciate the patience.
No. It's you deserve the thanks for doing the work. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments on Isabella's topics? If not, Frederick has a few items on the agenda coming up. Frederick, are you available? There you go.
Yes. Hey, everybody. So those are mainly informations. I did a release of JupyterLab 404 on Thursday last week, and it's basically breaking integration tests in extension. To make the long story short, the trouble is that we have updated some packages of the release version that were not used in the development version. So basically we have shipped something that we are not testing. In particular, in this case, it's some new version of Lumino. I linked the issue, and a PR is already fixing it and merged, and I'm gonna be doing another release probably tomorrow. It's only impacting integration tests that use Galata, and basically what you will see is that the integration tests are gonna fail because Galata is not gonna be able to check that JupyterLab is fully open. Basically, it's checking that the launcher is visible, and that's what is failing. So yeah, that's the issue you may see in extension. So yeah, I'm gonna fix it, and with the new version, you should be fine again. And then following up on the point I raised last week, I archived all repositories that were listed in the discussion of unmaintained repositories. We have the ongoing discussion on clarifying the rights of the member of the council and the sub-team, meaning the release team and the admin team. Brian has brought very good point and make additional suggestion. So in particular, is proposing also that we drop the inactive status. This one is not a new proposal. It was there before. So I would kindly ask members of the council that have already reviewed it or not yet to have a second look for discussion to see what to do with that comment and the latest changes. And because of that, I will let that PR open for discussion for at least another week and see if we are reaching consensus before calling for a formal vote. And then the last point is, so last week I started a vote about should we merge the PR for having mermaid syntax render as graph in Markdown cell. So that's the PR by Nick. So the vote is still in progress because I said that it's gonna be open for 2 weeks as it's holiday time. But we've already reached simple majority. So Nick, I don't know if you are there, but we're gonna be able to merge it, and I fixed the CI on it. But I will keep the vote open for another week, as voting is important for council, as it's part of the ability of saying that you are an active member. So for people that haven't voted, just go and check a box. Even abstain, it's good. it's why abstain exists if you don't know what to do. That's all for me.
Can I ask for clarification on the issue with Lamino upgrade? Is the next version going to reverse the pump, or is it going to fix the Calata tests without changing the Lumino version?
So one of the issues that has been fixed in Lumino was about the tab bar. To add some, like, those issues are related to accessibility things. And the consequence of one of the changes is that the tab bar is no more considered as a children of the dock panel. And the consequence of that is the tab bar doesn't get the class GP-activity any longer. And that class was used to find the tab in the dock panel in Galata. So basically, we need to change the selectors of the tabs in the dock panel in Galata to be able to handle like the new version and the old version. Does that clarify the question, Mike?
So my question was the plan to revert to the older version of Lumino or to fix that in Galata? And I understand that we are leaning towards fixing the Galata selectors.
Oh, if I do a release right now, I'm gonna bring the version backward. Like I'm gonna reduce the version.
Okay, that's fine. I guess we will end up resolving. I just wanted to clarify because some users are asking about these very fix that you mentioned. So I just wanted to know what to expect, whether the fix will be included or not. But that's fine, absolutely fine. I will also comment on the issue, and from what I understand, maybe enabling immutable installs could help there. But that's probably another discussion for technical.
Yeah, I can comment on. I can comment on the issue. Like those are indeed very technical things. But for the staging folder, it's gonna be tough to enforce immutability. But yeah, I can comment more on the issue. The trouble is that the released version of JupyterLab, it's not having as many dependency as the dev mode. So we need to clean up the yarn log that we copy from the dev version to the released version. And the trouble is that before, Yarn was not updating the package, and now it takes the liberty of updating third-party dependency. And hence the issue we got. Galen, I'll give you the hand back.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Frederick. Looks like Eric is up next, but dual compatibility guide document. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm working on an extension compatibility guide. I mentioned this in the notebook meeting as well, but this is a guide for people who want to make extensions compatible with JupyterLab, Jupyter Notebook, and whatever other front ends come out in the future. So right now, it explains how basic compatibility works because both are built on JupyterLab components. and it gives some other explanation of the plugin system in general. So there's an additional document that's been broken out in the same extension compatibility guide. So we have the extension compatibility guide. We have another document that explains the plugin system. And then we have 3 code samples. One of the samples is Jeremy's top area text widget. Just adds a widget to the top area in Lab and Notebook. The second example is a shout button. It adds a button to the right sidebar. And in JupyterLab, it gives you an optional extra element that goes in the status bar. And then we have a third example, which is a clap widget, and that's coming soon. But I'm basically just trying to finish this and get it merged in. I know Frederick has already looked at it. So if I could use some, I think, additional reviews and approvals. And then I also will be working on the code linking, because right now the code is inlined and I'd like to link to the examples repo. So I've talked a little with Fred about that, and adding integration tests. So both of those I'll have to work on, and will likely need, I might need assistance with some of that stuff. But information about that is in the meeting notes there. So yeah, Fred or whoever else can take a look at that. I'd appreciate that.
Thanks a lot, Eric, for working on that. I have another look.
Cool, thanks.
I will try. I think if it's fine for you, I may be able to help on the JupyterLab PR to maybe set up a way to copy the code directly from the example to ease maintenance.
That's good. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments about Eric's topic? Okay. I'm next up with a plug for the weekly triage. We were talking about this a little bit earlier in the hour, but to reiterate, we do a weekly triage every week, Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific. And it's on, I believe, the same channel as this. We've had fairly light turnout, but also a fairly light volume of issues, so it hasn't been a big problem. To describe the triage, what we do is take a look at all new issues that have come in for JupyterLab, Jupyter Notebook, and JupyterLab Desktop. And we identify, are these pieces of work that are either a bug or an enhancement that is unique, well-formed, and something that a person would work on. It's not something that we're trying to diagnose or fix there in the hour. It's more like we're going to accept it, ask some questions, close it as a duplicate, etc. And when we get close to a release, this is also an occasion where we can identify, is this a potential release blocker? And so having more perspectives can help get these issues the attention that they need. This is a great way to encourage new people to participate in the project, because when they file an issue, we set the expectation that within a week, they will get some sort of response, either a question or an acknowledgement that their bug is valid. So you don't have to be an expert about this kind of stuff. You just have to be willing to communicate and help out. And again, it's Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time, if you can make it. And if you can't make it, if you have the rights to look at issues and change their labels, if you see a new issue come in with the needs triage tag, even at any point during the week, you can ask questions. You can remove the triage tag if it looks good. But we should be continuing to encourage new contributors to help out. Any questions, comments, suggestions about the triage? All right. Hearing none, Ely is next up. Go ahead, Ely.
Cool. I will keep this brief because many of you heard this last week and have hopefully already booked your tickets to New York. But on Monday, August 28th, Bloomberg will be hosting a Open Studio Day, a Jupyter Open Studio Day. This is not only for JupyterLab, although I suspect we'll have some very strong representation there. This is sort of pan Jupyter Workday. sort of combination office hours, hackathon, presentations, all very informal. Food will be provided. It's going to be a great time. And yeah, it's a wonderful experience for new contributors. It's a wonderful way for experienced contributors to get together and do some work in person. And I really look forward to seeing a bunch of you there. I've posted a link in the agenda. I'll post one in the chat here now as well. Please do register if you're planning on coming.
All right. Thank you, Ely. So yeah, there's a link in the chat. Thank you for sharing that. Tony is next up on the agenda, the plug for the accessibility meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, we moved days for the accessibility meeting. Usually it's after today, and then it's every other week, but now we've moved to Thursdays to make it more European time friendly. I know we save an hour, but hopefully some folks can join. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. I'm not sure what that is in your time. But yeah, it's a time where, so we'll have a full hour. Usually we have 45 minutes. So we're trying this new meeting schedule out, and hopefully it allows some of y'all to join.
Okay. Well, Tony, you are the last person on the agenda. Does anyone else have any topics that you'd like to discuss on the record? We are at 38 minutes past the hour.
I just have a question regarding the meetings and the community that we have been discussing. So I have the calendar of Jupyter here where I follow the meetings. All those meetings that we see there, which ones are all of them open to the community? For example, the triage, I saw it, I was curious, but I thought that was for the core team effectively. So the question is, all of those meetings, if I can, I could participate in those.
That's a it's a good question. I'm going to drop a link to the community calendar in here. And my expectation is that if you see it on this public calendar on the public internet, it's open to the public. But there's still, I think, a well-founded concern that a lot of new contributors have of like, you can't literally just show up. It's not like going to a coffee shop. Like there's this feeling of, do I belong here? Am I going to be welcomed here, or do I need to sort of attend and be hands off about it? Darian, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you see it on the calendar, please go. The only one I'm not sure is actually a meeting still is there's an Interact community meeting that is on the calendar. I don't know if that's active. That's not a Project Jupyter project, but it's adjacent to Jupyter, and their meetings were on the calendar so that people would know, but I don't know if they're still being held because I haven't gone to one. But every other thing you see on there, you are welcome to go, even if it's a working call. If they put it on there, it's because it is meant to be open to the public. And in many calls, if someone new shows up, they will try to stop for a minute and do some introductions and try to get to know you. Doesn't always happen, but usually that's because of social cues and not because of policy. If you see a call on the calendar and it catches your eye, please go.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Maybe we could get Zach to put like something just above the calendar on there that says, you know, all events on this calendar are welcome to so-and-so, and maybe even like suggest that some of them are better for newcomers. Because this page gets visited a lot, I think. It's probably one of the more useful things on our discourse.
I think honestly, it's also linked. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was surprised you linked the discourse. I've actually never seen this one. I've only seen it on the Jupyter docs. Like you're probably right, but I was just surprised.
Yeah,
I've never seen it on the Jupyter docs.
It is in fact, I was just about to paste it in. If you go to jupyter.org/community, it is about 2/3 of the way down on the page, and it does, and it links to the docs, not the discourse. To be honest, I think that the jupyter.org/community page is perhaps too much information. It very much feels like advice by committee. And, people who want to get involved, maybe the calendar should be more prominent, but also, like, if you look at the Tuesday morning section, it is extremely crowded. There are, like, this coming Tuesday, the 15th, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings that overlap. And to be honest, I don't think any of those are particularly newbie friendly. Like the security meeting, we've had cases, I'm on the security committee, we've had cases where newbies will show up and they have a question about something. And at best we can say, oh, that's not really something we can discuss in this forum. Let's keep the conversation going on the GitHub issue or on like a private email channel so that everyone on the list gets included. So it might be good to have a minimal version of the calendar to say, if you're new, here are some suggestions, as opposed to saying, here's our entire calendar. Because it's
not,
a lot,
right? Is it the entire calendar?
It's not.
I don't think it is.
It's only the public calls.
Yeah.
And so the only one call on here that I would think is a little less like the others, but even that is open to the public, is the Monday's Jupyter Software Steering Council, because that's meant to be a working call. Nonetheless, it's meant to be a working call. It's open to the public, and I'm not on the Software Steering Council, and I go because I want to know what's going on. And, if somebody comes and they're in the wrong place, but they're there in a community-minded way, I think it's a good outcome to be like, hey, cool, but here's how you actually get the thing you want solved, and welcome. Now you've seen a few of our faces. So I wouldn't want to discourage people from doing that, because it happens with some like small frequency anyway.
Mm-hmm. I do think, though, that giving people such a extreme amount of choice can discourage action. I think it might be good to say, like, if you're interested in JupyterLab, we recommend joining the Wednesday JupyterLab call, because it tends to have, tends to be particularly welcoming to newbies, and it tends to have a high level of engagement. I know we don't like to editorialize, but like giving people a bit of guidance for new contributors helps to spur people to action.
For me, nobody would say no to such a guide. I just think it's not present in my mind what that guide would say right now.
Yeah, I do. Tony dropped in to the chat that please feel free to attend and introduce yourself. I like that. That's common etiquette, is like, if you're here for the first time and you're comfortable doing so, let's make time to attend and introduce yourself. We've done that in the past when we have a particularly large number of new people. We'll do like a round of introductions, or we'll ask new people, hey, would you like to come on camera and introduce yourself, even off the record. I like that we have, the off the record segment of the meeting.
But I think Tony's suggestion was to put those words on the discourse.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool. I am going to add that at the very least. Then you see a meeting and you won't have Carlos's question, which is, can I even go? The answer is definitely yes. And hopefully that's clear to the next person who sees the calendar.
Yeah.
Jason
I feel
Grout
like
says something too.
Jason Grout says, visitors are welcome. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I can just say it in audio too. I would say visitors is welcome is the right level of inviting people to come, but not insisting on all Jupyter meetings being run exactly the same way. The Jupyter Hub team might have their own way of introducing people or whatever. I would say we don't have the authority to dictate how every Jupyter meeting is run, and offering people an opportunity to introduce themselves may or may not happen in some meetings and creates an expectation that may or may not be fulfilled. But I would say visitors are welcome is sort of the appropriate level of, you're welcome to join. And sometimes there'll be opportunities to add things to the agenda, sometimes, you know, whatever, and that's up to how the people that are running the meeting are running the meeting. But certainly they're open to the public, so visitors are welcome.
I mean, is there any Jupyter meeting where somebody is not welcome to introduce themselves?
I don't know.
I put this in for a specific reason. When we run meetings a lot, the people who run the meetings get into a cadence or a habit, and it's easy to miss new people joining. So if we ask somebody to introduce themselves and they say, hi, in the chat, hi, I'm here for the first time, hopefully we can help acknowledge that. I think it's really hard to acknowledge new members in large meetings. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I guess what I'm saying is, let's create the expectation on the people running the meeting side and not set up people that are visitors coming for an expectation that may or may not be met in an actual meeting. And then there's disappointment. So I totally agree with you, Tony. We should encourage that in meetings, but I think we should do that encouragement on the side of people running the meetings rather than on the public at large joining a meeting. Just because I want to avoid disappointment.
Yeah, I feel like, Jason, we've done that kind of ad hoc when we notice a lot of people joining in, or when we've specifically invited them.
Yep.
But the nature of these meetings is such that we could have someone discover that page, download the Zoom client and dial in, and the host is not like, I typically take a quick look at the grid when I'm hosting and I'm starting the meeting, but especially when we're being recorded, I don't want to put someone on the spot if they're uncomfortable to say like, hey, you know, new person, or hey, you know, Joe Blow, I haven't recognized your name. Are you new here? Especially because they might not be new. They might just be not habituated to dialing in. So I feel like encouraging the host to say like, is anyone here new? Would you like to introduce yourself either in chat or in the notes or out loud? I like giving the kind of standing agenda item for introductions.
Absolutely. I'm just saying we should encourage that within the community from the people running the meetings.
Yeah.
Or like Tony says, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. That's a way to not take up agenda time if you are strict about your agenda time, but still be, you know, allow people to say a word or to introduce themselves.
Yeah.
And different meetings might have different conventions. I just hesitate for us to unilaterally decide how all meetings in Jupyter are run in this forum. Now,
yeah,
hearing council or something like that, I think would be an appropriate place maybe to make that unilateral decision about.
I don't think.
Oh, go ahead.
I just don't think this is a decision. Saying, please feel free to attend and introduce yourself is such an anodyne thing to say. We're not saying that's how the call is going to be run. Frankly, I know people who would be afraid that there's an expectation that they now introduce themselves, and that might keep them from showing. Like, I don't think this is prescriptive. We just want to have a sentence that says, please come. That's all. Like, I don't.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And there's 16 of us on this call, and we've spent, you know, let's say 10 minutes talking about this. That's 160 minutes. It's enough, I think, for one sentence.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we don't really have a guide for facilitators about how to run a meeting, you know, and I also don't want to get into that mode, that prescriptive mode. So, okay. I think we've reached a point where we've discussed this sufficiently. We are about 10 minutes till the top of the hour. Does anybody else have any topics they want to discuss on the record? If not, I'll stop the recording so we can have some time for off the record chat. All right, hearing none. Thank you all for your contributions. I will stop the recording in 3, 2, 1.